The knife slipped from my trembling fingers, clattering against the damp earth like a gunshot in the silent woods. Rain hammered the tent fly above me, turning the world into a blurry watercolor of grays and greens, but it couldn't drown out the ragged sobs tearing from my chest. "Ethan?" I whispered to the empty night, my voice breaking like the storm outside. "What the hell have you done?" I'd driven out here to the Smoky Mountains 3 days ago, fleeing the suffocating grip of Nashville's neon lights and the ghosts that haunted my apartment. At 28, I was supposed to have it all figured out. Steady job as a graphic designer, a circle of friends who threw the best rooftop parties, and that effortless southern charm everyone said made me irresistible. But charm doesn't fix a heart shattered by your own father's words. "You're my son, Ethan, but this ain't right. Not in my house." He'd found the photo on my phone, the one of me kissing Jake at last Pride, and just like that, 28 years of pretending evaporated. Jake had bailed weeks earlier, tired of my emotional baggage, leaving me with nothing but a half-empty fridge and a playlist of Bon Iver on repeat. So I packed my truck with a cooler of craft beers, a worn sleeping bag, and the kind of reckless hope that only comes from hitting rock bottom. The Appalachians called to me like an old lover, rugged, unforgiving, but promising solitude. No judgments, no expectations. Just me, the stars, and the whisper of wind through the hemlocks. The first night, I set up camp at Cades Cove, that hidden gem where the black bears roam free and the fog rolls in like a biblical shroud. My site was perfect. A flat clearing ringed by ancient oaks, the Little Pigeon River gurgling just 50 yards away. I pitched the tent with mechanical precision, each stake driven like a nail in the coffin of my old life. By dusk, the fire was crackling, casting golden fingers across the pine needles, and I cracked open a hazy IPA, toasting to nobody in particular. "To fresh starts," I muttered, the bitterness on my tongue mirroring the ache in my gut. The stars punched through the canopy like diamonds on velvet, and for a fleeting moment, I felt it. The peace I'd chased all the way from Tennessee. No cell service, no notifications pinging about Jake's new Instagram stories. Just the symphony of crickets and the distant hoot of an owl. But peace is a fragile thing, especially when you're running from yourself. That night, sleep came in fits, haunted by dreams of my dad's disappointed eyes and Jake's laugh echoing in empty bars. I woke before dawn, sweat-soaked despite the chill, and hiked the Abrams Falls Trail to shake it off. The path wound through rhododendron thickets, the air thick with the scent of damp moss and wild honeysuckle. Waterfalls thundered in the distance, a reminder that some things crash and reform without apology. By midday, I was back at camp, sketching in my notebook, rough outlines of the peaks, jagged lines that bled into abstract swirls of emotion. Art had always been my anchor, the one place where being gay, being broken, being Ethan didn't feel like a liability. As the sun dipped low, painting the sky in bruised purples, I fried trout over the fire, the sizzle a small victory against the encroaching dark. That's when I heard it. Footsteps, deliberate and heavy, crunching through the underbrush. My heart jackknifed it. Bears didn't walk like that, too purposeful, too human. I grabbed the bear spray from my pack, fumbling the canister as a figure stumbled into the firelight. He was soaked to the bone, his hiking boots caked in mud, a faded red backpack slung over one shoulder like it carried the weight of the world. Mid-30s, maybe, with a scruffy beard framing a jaw that looked carved from granite. And eyes, God, those eyes, storm gray and haunted, like they'd seen too many dawns they wished they hadn't. "Hey!" he rasped, hands raised in surrender, rain dripping from his lashes.
"Sorry, man.
"Didn't mean to spook you." Got turned around on the trail. "Name's Daniel." I lowered the spray but didn't holster it, my pulse thundering louder than the downpour. Strangers in the backcountry weren't unheard of. Cades Cove drew its share of thru-hikers and soul-searchers, but something about him set my nerves alight. Not danger, exactly. More like recognition, the kind that hits you in the chest and steals your breath. "Ethan?" I managed, nodding toward the fire. "Sight's big enough for two if you're not a serial killer." He let out a low chuckle, the sound rough around the edges but warm, like whiskey on a cold night. No promises, but I've got my own tent. Just need a spot to crash till the storm blows over. He dropped his pack with a thud, revealing a lean build honed by miles of trail, flannel shirt clinging to broad shoulders in a way that made my throat dry. We didn't talk much at first. He warmed his hands by the flames while I portioned out the last of the trout, sliding a tin plate his way without a word. Gratitude flickered in his eyes as he ate, slow and deliberate, like savoring a memory. The rain eased to a patter, and that's when the words started. Hesitant at first, like testing thin ice. He was from Atlanta, he said, a contractor who'd specialized in restoring old Southern mansions until the market tanked post-pandemic. Now he was drifting, piecing together odd jobs, chasing the horizon to outrun a divorce that had gutted him. She found out, he said quietly, staring into the embers. About me. It wasn't fair to her, hiding it all those years. The confession hung there, raw and unfiltered, and I felt a pull, magnetic and terrifying. Me too, I thought. Hiding. Always hiding. I shared a sip from my flask. Good Tennessee bourbon, smooth as sin, and the floodgates cracked. I told him about Dad, the photo, Jake's ghost. How the city that birthed country legends had chewed me up and spat me out. Daniel listened without interruption, his gaze steady, offering nods that felt like lifelines. Family's a bitch, he murmured finally, poking the fire with a stick. But blood don't define you. Neither does a bad breakup. You're out here, Ethan. That's braver than most. By midnight, the storm had passed, leaving a sky stitched with stars. We leaned against logs, shoulders brushing in the fire's glow, trading stories like currency. His laugh was infectious, a deep rumble that shook loose the knots in my chest. He spoke of rebuilding a Victorian in Savannah, the satisfaction of breathing life into faded wood, and I confessed my dream of illustrating a graphic novel about queer outlaws in the Wild West. Vulnerability wrapped in humor, the American way, punchlines to paper over the pain. When our hands touched passing the flask, neither pulled away. Electricity hummed, subtle but undeniable, the first spark of something neither of us had sought. Dawn broke with mist curling off the river like cigarette smoke, and Daniel was gone. His sleeping bag rolled tight, a scribbled note on my cooler. Thanks for the fire. Trail calls.
D.
Panic clawed at me. Not fear, but loss, sharp as a fresh cut. I'd bared my soul to a ghost, another fleeting connection in a life full of them. But as I packed up, resolve hardened. The mountains had given me a taste of what could be. I wouldn't let it vanish with the fog. Little did I know Daniel hadn't gone far. 2 days later, on the Alum Cave Trail, I spotted him again, perched on a bluff, sketching the layered ridges with charcoal-smudged fingers. Our eyes met, and the world narrowed to that grin, crooked and knowing. Fancy meeting you here, he called, and just like that, the peace I'd sought alone shattered into something shared, something alive. We hiked together that afternoon, the path steep and switchbacked, ferns brushing our calves like conspirators. Conversation flowed easier now, laced with flirtation, teasing jabs about my fancy city boots versus his battered L Bean specials. He was 32, I learned, with a tattoo of a compass rose on his forearm, inked after his ex-wife walked out. Points north, he said, flexing it with a wink. Toward whatever's worth the miles. I laughed, but inside, hope bloomed tentative and tender. For the first time in months, I wasn't performing, Ethan the witty survivor, Ethan the unflappable. Just Ethan, raw and reaching. Camp that night was at a primitive site near Klingman's Dome, elevation high enough that the air bit crisp, stars so close you could almost touch them. We split a pot of chili from my dehydrated stash, the steam rising like prayers. Firelight danced across his face, highlighting the faint scar above his eyebrow from a roofing mishap, and I found myself tracing it with my eyes, memorizing the map of him. Why the drift? I asked, voice soft against the night. He hesitated, flames reflecting in his gaze. After the divorce, I came out. To everyone. Church folks back home called it a phase. But it wasn't. It was me. Been running ever since. Figuring out who that guy is without the lies. His words mirrored my own unraveling, two threads tangling in the dark. I reached out, fingers lacing with his, calloused palm against smooth, worlds colliding. No kiss, not yet. The touch was promise enough, a bridge over the chasm of our wounds. As the fire died to coals, we crawled into our tents side by side, the nylon walls thin as whispers. Sleep evaded me, pulse racing with the what-ifs. What if this was real? What if the mountains weren't just escape, but beginning? Morning brought coffee brewed black and strong, shared from the same mug, our knees bumping under the picnic table. We planned the day. A loop trail to Andrew's Bald, the highest grassy bald in the park, where July wildflowers would still linger in November's chill, nature's defiance. The hike was grueling, roots snaking the path like veins, but Daniel's presence made it poetry. He pointed out shelf fungi on fallen logs, nature's recycling, and I snapped photos on my phone, framing him against the vista where Tennessee met North Carolina in a hazy embrace. At the Bald, wind-whipped and open, we collapsed in the grass, breaths sinking as we stared at the endless blue. This, he said, turning to me, this is what I've been missing, not the running, the stopping, with someone who gets it. My heart stuttered. Yeah, I whispered, and he nodded, hand finding mine again. The kiss came then, slow and inevitable, tasting of salt and earth and the sweet ache of possibility. Lips tentative at first, then deepening with the hunger of men starved for truth. It was romantic, not rushed. Hands cupping faces, breaths mingling like fog. In that moment, atop the world, betrayal felt like a distant myth, conflict a storm we'd weather together. But shadows lengthen, even in paradise. That evening, back at camp, Daniel's phone, dead for days, charged enough to buzz with a voicemail. His face drained of color as he listened, alone by the river. When he returned, eyes red-rimmed, the air thickened with unspoken dread. My brother, he explained, voice hollow, found out where I am. Says Dad's dying. Pancreatic. Wants me home for reconciliation. The word landed like a stone. Reconciliation for him, maybe. For me, it echoed my own father's rejection. The chasm I couldn't bridge. Go, I said, forcing steadiness I didn't feel. Family's messy, but it's yours. He shook his head, fierce. Not leaving you like this. Not when. His voice cracked, and he pulled me close, foreheads touching. Ethan, you're the first real thing since the world flipped. I can't lose that. We clung through the night, whispers weaving promises against the chill. But dawn brought the truck keys in his hand, decision etched in the lines of his face. Just a week, he vowed at the trailhead, rain starting again. Then I'm back. We finished this trail together. The kiss goodbye was desperate, laced with the metallic tang of fear. He drove off, taillights fading into mist, and I stood there, hollowed out. Peace? It was a joke. The mountains mocked me with their indifference. Peaks that endured lovers' quarrels and heartbreaks alike. I extended my stay, hiking solo to numb the void, but Daniel haunted every vista, every campfire glow. A week stretched to 2. Texts came sporadic. Complications. Stay strong. Then silence. Paranoia crept in. Had he bailed like Jake? Chosen blood over us? On day 10, desperation won. I drove to the nearest ranger station, borrowing their landline to call his number. Voicemail. Daniel, it's me. Ethan. If you're ghosting, at least say it. Don't leave me hanging. No reply. By day 14, rage simmered. I broke camp, tires spitting gravel as I barreled toward Atlanta. The Smokies shrinking in my rearview like a discarded dream. The city assaulted me. Horns blaring, billboards screaming sales on pickup trucks. But I navigated by gut, tracking his last known job site from a mutual contact he'd mentioned. The address led to a half-restored bungalow in Decatur, scaffold skeleton under Georgia sun. Workers milled about, but Daniel's truck wasn't there. The foreman, a burly guy with a Vols cap, scratched his beard.
Dan?
Yeah, he rapped early. Family stuff. Said something about heading west. Colorado, maybe. Didn't elaborate. West. The word gutted me. Not home. Not to me. But to new horizons. Leaving smoke in his wake. Betrayal burned hot. A wildfire through dry tinder. He'd lied. Not with words, but with absence. The reconciliation was a smokescreen. He'd run again, compass pointing away from us. I slumped against my truck, fists clenched till knuckles whitened. Tears came unbidden, hot and furious, soaking my shirt as thunderheads gathered. Why did I trust so easy? Why did every man I let in carve out a peace and vanish? The storm broke then, sheets of rain blurring the world, mirroring the torrent inside. I drove aimlessly, radio blasting Springsteen, Thunder Road, that anthem of escape and ache, until exhaustion pulled me to a dive bar on the outskirts, neon sign flickering open. Inside, it was dim and sticky, the kind of joint where regrets nursed over cheap whiskey. I claimed a stool, ordering a double neat, when fate or cruelty intervened. The door swung, and there he was, Daniel, drenched and disheveled, scanning the room like a man hunted. Our eyes locked, and time fractured. Ethan? He crossed the floor in 3 strides, confusion etching his brow. What the how? Tracked you? I spat, voice venom-laced, like a goddamn bloodhound. Turns out, a week means forever in your language. His face crumpled, hands gripping the bar.
No.
God, no. It's not. The words choked off as sobs racked him, raw and unfiltered. The bartender slid him a water, but he ignored it, collapsing onto the stool beside me. Dad, he didn't make it. Yesterday. And then, my brother. He outed me to the whole damn family. Threats, slurs. Couldn't breathe. Packed a bag and bolted. Was coming back to you. To the mountains. I swear. The fight drained from me, replaced by a tidal wave of empathy. Betrayal? It wasn't his, it was theirs, the world's, the legacy of closets and condemnations. I pulled him into a hug, rain and tears mingling, the bar fading to irrelevance. I'm here, I murmured. We face it. Together. We stumbled out into the deluge, arms linked, the city a blur of headlights and hope. No grand gestures, no cinematic vows. Just 2 men, weathered and willing, driving north through the storm. The Smokies waited, patient as ever, ready to witness our return. Not as strangers, but as survivors. Love, I realized, isn't the absence of conflict. It's the choice to hike through it, hand in hand, toward whatever bald awaits. Back in the mountains, we rebuilt, not with words but actions. Daniel took a remote carpentry gig restoring park cabins, his hands finding purpose in pine and pegs. I sketched our story, panels flowing from betrayal's blaze to redemption's glow. Family mended slowly, letters to my dad, tentative calls to his kin, human threads fraying but not severed. We weren't perfect. Arguments flared like summer brush fires, old wounds reopening under full moons. But each dawn, waking to his steady breath, I chose gratitude. In America's wild heart, where rivers carve canyons and men learn to stand tall, we carved our own path. Peace wasn't solitude. It was this messy, profound, eternally ours. The first winter we spent together was a brutal teacher, snow blanketing the Smokies in a hush that amplified every creak and doubt. Daniel's cabin, a one-room affair on the edge of the park leased from the Park Service, became our fortress. Log walls patched with his expert hands, a wood stove glowing like a heartbeat. I'd commute weekends from Nashville, my design job a necessary evil that paid the bills but drained the soul. Fridays, I'd barrel up I-40, windows down to catch the first whiff of pine, heart lifting as his silhouette appeared on the porch, mug in hand, that crooked smile chasing shadows. But peace, once grasped, demands vigilance. Daniel's past lingered like wood smoke, acrid and clinging. Nightmares woke him thrashing, murmurs of "I'm sorry," to a wife he'd never fully known, a life half-lived. I'd hold him then, whispers of "You're enough," against his sweat-damp hair, but the guilt festered. Mine, too. Dad's silence after my letter. A void that echoed louder than words. We'd hike to shake it off, boots crunching virgin snow on the Porter's Creek Trail, where icicles hung like frozen tears from overhanging branches. One February dawn, clarity struck like lightning. We were cross-country skiing the Oconaluftee River Trail, breath fogging in plumes, when Daniel stopped dead, poles planted. "Ethan," he said, voice steady despite the cold. "I need to go back. To Atlanta. Not forever, just to face it. The family plot, the estate crap. But mostly, to say goodbye on my terms." My stomach nodded, betrayal's ghost rising unbidden. Alone. The word tasted bitter, laced with Jake's abandonment. He turned, eyes fierce with love.
No.
"With you. If you'll come." I did. The drive south was tense, Springsteen on low, my hand in his over the console. Atlanta sprawled unforgiving. Sprawling interstates, magnolias defiant against concrete. But we navigated to the cemetery in Grant Park, a hushed acre of marble and moss. Daniel's father lay under a simple stone. Beloved husband, devoted father. No mention of the son who'd broken the mold. We stood there, snow flurries dusting our coats, as Daniel knelt, tracing the letters. "He loved me," he whispered. "In his way. I see that now." Tears froze on my lashes. My own reckoning loomed back in Nashville, Dad's farm on the Cumberland Plateau, a place of tobacco barns and unspoken rules. Daniel drove us there unasked, his presence a shield. The porch light flickered as we pulled up, Mom's silhouette in the door, Dad beside her, arms crossed like always. No hugs, no fanfare. Just coffee in the kitchen, steam rising like fragile truces. "Ethan," Dad rumbled, eyes on his mug. "Your letter. Took time. But you're my boy. Always. No apology, no parade." But the words cracked the ice. Daniel's hand under the table, steady as oak, grounded me. We stayed 2 days, mending in increments, fishing the Connie Fork, stories swapped over cornbread. Humaneness in the ordinary. A father's nod, a lover's squeeze. Spring thawed us further. I quit the agency grind, freelancing from the cabin, my graphic novel taking shape. Pages of queer frontiersmen, resilient against prairie storms. Daniel built us an addition, a loft with skylights for stargazing. His hammer strikes a rhythm of renewal. Romance wove through the mundane. Picnics at Laurel Falls, where mist kissed our skin. Slow dances to Coulter Wall on the porch as fireflies scripted the dark. Yet conflict brews in calm waters. June brought Daniel's ex-wife, unannounced. A whirlwind of auburn hair and unresolved hurt, pulling into our drive with a U-Haul of forgotten things. Her name was Sarah, sharp-eyed and unyielding, the woman who'd shared his bed while he wrestled shadows. "I need closure," she said, voice steel over sweet tea. He promised forever. Daniel's face ashen. He invited her in, leaving me on the porch like an interloper. Hours ticked by, laughter filtering out. Old jokes, shared history, and jealousy coiled, venomous. Had I been the rebound, the mountain fling? Betrayal's specter whispered. "Run now, before it guts you." When she left, arms empty but lighter, Daniel found me by the river, skipping stones with furious arcs. "It was goodbye," he said, sitting close. "She forgave me, said I deserve this, you us." His hand on my knee, earnest. "Do you believe me?" I wanted to, God, I did. But doubt lingered, a thorn. "Prove it," I challenged, voice raw. "No more ghosts." He did, in the American way, grand and gritty. That July 4th, he loaded the truck with coolers and quilts, driving us to the Natchez Trace Parkway, that ribbon of history from Nashville to Natchez. We camped along the way, fireworks shows bursting over the Mississippi like defiant stars. At a roadside pullout, under a canopy of live oaks dripping Spanish moss, he knelt, not with rings, but a carved wooden box, compass rose etched on top. Inside, a key to the cabin, retitled in both names, and a folded map marked with trails we'd conquer together. "Marry me?" he asked, grin sheepish. Not legal yet everywhere, but in our world? Yeah. Laughter bubbled through tears. Hell yes. The kiss was fireworks of its own. Passionate, promising, sealed with the river's roar. Summer deepened our roots. We hosted friends, my Nashville crew, wary at first but won by Daniel's dry wit. His Atlanta holdouts thawing over Esmores. Pride in Knoxville was a revelation. Rainbow flags snapping in breeze, our hands linked unashamed. No hiding, no half-truths. Emotion swelled, humanistic in its quiet power. Love as rebellion, as grace. Autumn painted the mountains in fire, leaves carpeting trails like confetti from a wedding. We thru-hiked sections of the Appalachian Trail, packs light, hearts heavy with stories. At one shelter, etched with decades of carved initials, Daniel traced ours. E+D, forever. This is climax, he joked. No drama, just us. But life scripts its own turns. October brought news. Daniel's cancer scare. A lump mistaken for shadow but benign on biopsy. Fear stripped us bare. Nights huddled in the loft, vowing tomorrows. It forged us stronger. Betrayal's embers cooled to resolve. My novel sold. A small press in Austin, queer tales resonating. Launch party in Asheville. Readings under string lights. Daniel's pride brighter than any spotlight. As leaves fell, we reflected by the fire, bourbon warming palms. That first night, I said, head on his shoulder. You wandering in, it was fate's cruel joke, or its gift? He chuckled, kissing my temple. Both, but mostly gift. The stars wheeled above, indifferent witnesses to our arc. From solitude's knife edge to shared hearth. Winter circled back, softer now. No storms, just snowmen with crooked grins, mirroring ours. Peace, I learned, isn't destination, it's the trail, the companion, the choice to keep walking. In America's beating heart, wild and wounded, we'd found ours. Not perfect, but profoundly human. And that, in the end, was everything. Years blurred like watercolor on wet paper, but the mountains held us steady, their ridges a constant in our unfolding. By 33, I'd published a second book, expanding the outlaws into a series, queer icons bucking frontier fates with grit and grace. Daniel's restoration work bloomed. He partnered with the Park Service, reviving forgotten shelters along the At. Each nail a testament to endurance. Our cabin grew roots, bookshelves sagging under dog-eared volumes, a porch swing creaking under shared weight. Life wasn't linear. It zigzagged with joys and jolts, but we navigated, hands clasped. The first real fracture came in spring of our third year, unbidden as a flash flood. Daniel's brother, Mark, the one who'd unleashed family venom post-funeral, reappeared. A letter first, postmarked Atlanta. Words scrawled in regret. I've been wrong. Therapy's kicking my ass, but I see it now. Can we talk? For Dad. Daniel stared at it for days, folding and unfolding like a map to buried minds. He's family, he said finally, voice threaded with old pain. But so are you. We waited together, over endless cups of coffee on the porch, bluebirds flitting like hopeful scouts. Forgiveness isn't absolution. It's excavation, digging through resentment's rubble. I drove with him to a neutral ground, a Cracker Barrel off I-75, that bastion of southern normalcy with its country store baubles and hash brown casserole. Mark waited in a booth, gaunt and graying, eyes downcast over a menu he didn't touch. The talk was halting, laced with "I'm sorry"s and silences thick as grits. Mark confessed. Anger born of his own closet, a wife lost to his secrets. I lashed out 'cause I saw myself in you, Dan. Hated it. Daniel listened, jaw tight, then extended a hand. Not embrace, but bridge. Water under, he said. But it flows both ways. I waited outside, rain pattering the truck roof, heart in my throat. When they emerged, shoulders brushing. Not quite brothers reborn, but mending, relief washed over me. Betrayal's scar tissue stretched, but held. That night, back home, Daniel pulled me to the loft, lovemaking tender and affirming, bodies mapping forgiveness in size and skin. Romance as ritual, deepening the vows we'd whispered under oaks. Summer brought expansion, not kids, not yet our path, but community. We mentored at a Knoxville youth center, sharing stories with queer teens adrift in Bible Belt currents. One kid, Alex, reminded me of young Ethan. Sketchpad clutched like armor, eyes wary but wicked smart. "How'd you know?" he asked one workshop, pencil hovering. "That it's real, I mean." Daniel fielded it, voice gravel steady. "When it hurts to hide, and heals to say it, that's truth." Alex's grin cracked wide. A spark ignited. Humanistic ripple, our wounds alchemized to wisdom. Fall's climax crested unexpectedly. My novel tour hit New York, a whirlwind of signings and panels. The city's pulse a far cry from our quiet cove. Daniel joined for the finale at Books of Wonder, that magical nook where childhood dreams stack high. But en route, disaster struck. A semi jackknifed on the Jersey Turnpike, our rental slamming into guardrails. I blacked out to sirens, waking in ER with bruises blooming like ink blots. Daniel unscathed but shattered beside me. "You're okay," he choked, gripping my hand till IVs tugged. "God, Ethan, thought I'd lost you." The fear mirrored our first storm, vulnerability's knife edge. Recovery was slow. Weeks in a borrowed Brooklyn walk-up, Daniel nursing me with broth and bad TV. His worry a palpable fog. Conflict simmered in confinement. I snapped at fussing. He withdrew into silence, old independences clashing. "I don't need saving," I lashed one night, painkillers fraying tempers. He flinched, eyes storm-dark. "Never said you did. Just let me be here." The rawness broke us open, apologies tumbling like leaves. We talked till dawn, fears of fragility, the terror of outliving love. It forged intimacy deeper, conflict cauterizing to strength. By Thanksgiving, homebound, we hosted a feast. Mom and Dad tentative but present. Mark with his new partner. Awkward toasts bridging divides. Turkey carved with laughter, stories overlapping like quilt patches. Dad pulled me aside after pie, voice gruff. "Proud of you, son." Him too. No qualifiers, just fact, human growth in a man's halting words. Winter whispered warnings anew. Daniel's knee, battered from years on scaffolds, acted up, forcing a hiatus. Idleness chafed him, that builder's soul itching for purpose. "What if I'm broke by 40? He confessed one blizzard night, stove casting long shadows. "What then?" I cupped his face, thumb tracing beard stubble. "Then we adapt. Like the trail, detours, not dead ends." We pivoted. He taught workshops at the rec center, hands guiding young carpenters. I illustrated his designs, blending art and craft. Romance renewed in small flames. Hot cocoa dates by the window, watching snow mantle the world. Spring bloomed defiant, dogwoods pink against lingering frost. We summit Klingman's once more, that dome observatory piercing clouds, hands linked on the ramp. Below, valleys unfolded like life's messy map. Twists, triumphs, the occasional sheer drop. 10 years from now, Daniel mused, wind tousling hair. "Where are we?" "Here," I said, pulling him close. "Evolving." Summer sealed it, our commitment ceremony low-key under the bald where we'd first kissed. No priest, just friends in flannel. Vows exchanged with rings of twisted laurel wood. Through betrayals and births, Daniel pledged, voice carrying on breeze. To the horizon. Tears pricked, emotions tied, romantic and real. We danced barefoot in grass, fireflies' lanterns, as guitars strummed Woody Guthrie. American anthems of the road-weary heart. Autumn's harvest was quiet victory. Alex's first exhibit, our mentorship etched in his bold lines. Family dinners normalized, Mark's barbecues, Dad's farm visits yielding fresh eggs and easier silences. Conflict? It visited, in spats over chores or unspoken stresses, but we met it head-on. Therapy sessions in Gatlinburg a neutral ground for untangling. As leaves turned, we reflected by the river, feet dangling in current. "That stranger in the rain," I said, head on his shoulder. He saved me. Daniel smiled, arm around me. Nah, we saved each other. Stars emerged, patient witnesses to our odyssey, from Hook's sharp plunge to this humanistic harbor. Life's not fairy tale. It's folktale, gritty, graced with ghosts but gilded by grit. In the Smokies' embrace, Ethan and Daniel endured, not unscathed, but unbreakable. Love, we learned, is the ultimate trail. Arduous, awe-inspiring, always worth the wander. And in America's vast, varied soul, that's the story that sticks, raw, resonant, forever.